There are so many manufacturing companies right here in the state of Michigan. They're operating in their backyards, and for so many of us, we don't understand the importance they are contributing to not only our local economy, but really the global economy. One of those companies, Hemlock Semiconductor. And to tell us more, let's bring in Phil Dembowski. He's the Senior Vice President and Chief Commercial Officer. Thank you so much for being with us, Phil.
Yeah, thanks, Ronnie and Tyler. I appreciate the opportunity to join your show and talk a little bit about the coolest thing made in Michigan and Hemlock Semiconductor.
I will say, before today, the thing I love about the show is every day I learn something new.
Right.
But the crazy, you've been around since what, like 61?
1961.
And we're looking at this, and you're right here in our backyard. You're in the Saginaw area. But tell us more about the products that you make. You're the coolest manufacturing product in the state of Michigan, and a lot of people don't even know what you do.
Right, exactly. So yeah, Hemlock Semiconductor has been around since 1961. It was founded really at the start of the electronics age, right? And initially, it was all focused on making hyper-pure polysilicon for the semiconductor industry, right? For all of the new consumer electronics and things that were coming out from calculators and televisions and things in the 1960s. We were originally, started out of Dow Corning Corporation, right, which is another big company up in mid-Michigan. Today, we're owned 80% by Corning Glass and 20% by Shinitsu Hondatai, who is a Japanese semiconductor wafer producer. But really, we started as a manufacturing company making this really cool material, polysilicon. I'll hold this up to the screen. I'm not sure if your audience can see that. That is a hyper pure piece of polysilicon, although it's not very pure now that I've touched it, but that is what Hemlock makes. And polysilicon is the start of the entire electronic supply chain and the solar supply chain. And solar has really been a big focus over just the last 20 years.
This really is fascinating because it's such a vital part of our day-to-day lives, and we don't even think about it.
No, that's just it. Nobody even knows kind of that Hemlock exists. We like to say it's kind of the Silicon Valley hidden in the cornfields of Saginaw County, because we really are the start of the whole thing. And, for solar grade polysilicon, there's lots of companies that can make that. But for semiconductor grade polysilicon, there's really only 5 companies in the world that make semiconductor grade. And Hemlock is one of those. And again, when we talk about semiconductor grade, we say like 11/9 purity. That means 99.99999%. That's like 10 parts per trillion in purity. 10 parts per trillion is 2 seconds in 3,200 years, for perspective, or a grain of sand in 16 Olympic-sized pools. So we are talking about super, super high purity. Actually, the polysilicon we make is one of the purest substances on the face of the earth. So it has to be that pure for the semiconductor industry. That's one of the main requirements for them.
So it's with that, it's a product that we all need, and it's utilized in all of our electronics and so many other things. But yet, for people such as myself without a science background, I did have to watch a few videos today to even try to, decipher the language in which you're using. Does that make it hard for you to market your company?
A little bit. It's more hard to market to the public and to, just mainstream media. I mean, certainly the customers who need polysilicon know who Hemlock is. We're one of the giants, right? So people know who we are. So it's not a customer issue. We're selling business to business. But for the local community and Michigan overall and the federal government, it's more like, oh, really? I had no idea polysilicon was so critical, and that there's only a few companies that make it, and Hemlock is one of them. And so it is really important. And as you talk about electronics, every device that somebody is watching this show on right now has silicon that came through Hemlock, Michigan. And I can say that because there's only 5 companies who really make semiconductor grade, and each device has, 20, 30, 40 chips. And so some of that silicon came through Hemlock. It's pretty much guaranteed.
It's fascinating to me. We're talking with Phil Dembowski. He's the Senior Vice President and Chief Commercial Officer for Hemlock. With that, can we talk a little bit about staffing and employees? Is that a challenge for your company right now?
It is, and we've been, the solar market has been really volatile. It's a lot more commoditized, and so Hemlock's been through some difficult times. We've had some workforce reductions, over the last 5 years related more to the solar market than the semiconductor market. But, as Delaney was saying, skilled trades is tough for a lot of people, finding the right talent. Obviously, Hemlock is a high-tech company. We have a lot of engineering and science people, and the mid-Michigan area is pretty good because you have Dow Chemical and you have DuPont up here. And so there's a pretty good talent pool. But I will tell you, the skilled trades, it's hard finding people in the skilled trades area. And we have a lot of our own skilled trades, as well as all the contractors we use in this area when we're doing capital projects or construction. So I know I sit on the Saginaw Future Board, which is the local economic development agency here. And a lot of the companies struggle with how are we going to get the right talent that we need. And it's a little harder being up here in mid-Michigan. We're not down by Detroit, where there's a little bit, so it's harder to pull talent up here, but it's really important.
So what skill set do you need or are you looking for?
We hire a lot. I mean, we recruit every year out of universities for engineering talent, primarily chemical, mechanical, electrical engineers. And we recruit out of mostly Midwest, University of Michigan, Michigan State, Michigan Tech, Purdue, places like Wayne State. And so those are the places we go. We've had pretty good success getting local talent to come and join us. And then on the skilled trade side, we need people that are like electricians and welders and pipe fitters and millwrights. And, I look at our team and, it's an aging population. As we get a little bit older, it's like, who are the new people that are going to be the apprentices, right?
And you really do wonder about that. But, so much of this is played into the conversations, because if you had a blue collar family, your parents worked in blue collar, then they pushed a college education on you.
Sure.
The 4-year degree has been pushed so heavily on so many of our students, I would say over the past decade. It used to be, now I feel like, a 4-year degree is what a high school degree. It used to be, but it's about realigning that conversation to let people know not everyone needs a 4-year degree. We need you in these other areas as well.
Yeah, a 4-year degree is not the only path to success. There are other paths to success. And again, we have Delta College here in the Saginaw area, local community college, and they do a really good job helping train some of the operators that run plants like Dow Chemical and Hemlock, and some of the skilled trades people. So we're grateful to have them in the region.
So what is it behind the scenes to try to go in? Do you work with some of these local colleges as well to help design a program per se, so that you can get a skilled workforce out of it?
Yeah, with Delta specifically, we've done some work with them. And then with the universities, again, we're actively recruiting at the engineering schools and try to touch base with them. Hemlock does a lot in the community too, in this region. We're really supportive of STEM education. So we help build a new robotics center in Hemlock that the local area can use. We support scholarships for high school students to go up to Michigan Tech for their week-long engineering intensive. So we're doing a lot of things in the community to kind of bolster STEM and trades education. And again, selfishly, so the people will come and work at Hemlock someday is the idea, right? We want people to have the right talent. Right?
Exactly. It's like an investment in the future.
It's an investment in the future. Whether they come to Hemlock or not, it's an investment in this region to get local kids into programs where we know there's going to be talent needs in the future.
We're talking with Phil Dembowski. He's the Senior Vice President and Chief Commercial Officer for Hemlock. And with that, Phil, how have things been going over the past year with the pandemic?
Sure. It was early on, it was a struggle. I mean, again, we're an essential industry, right? So, I mean, if we don't make polysilicon, you've heard about the chip shortages and automotive. We're the start of the supply chain. So if we aren't supplying polysilicon, then down the road, there isn't wafers and chips and there isn't solar panels. And so we've been working the entire time. Now, early on, we put in place all kinds of measures and protocols following the CDC guidelines and the state of Michigan guidelines to make sure. But our team did a great job. The Hemlock team, was able to manufacture product. We didn't miss customer orders. All of my semiconductor customers, were calling me right as the pandemic started and said, please assure us that you're going to continue to supply and you've got the right, protocols. And so we were able to do that. And It's been a great time. Our team really pulled together. We had a pretty good 2020, and 2021 is shaping up to be very good so far this year.
So with that, Phil, before we say goodbye, because this is the first time we're talking with you, and I feel like it's probably the first time a lot of people in the community, especially down here in Metro Detroit, are learning more about your company.
Right.
What else do you want to share about the work that you're doing and how people can find out more information?
Sure. Well, Hemlock, and a lot of people don't know this, Hemlock's the biggest consumer of electricity in the state of Michigan. So that's, again, making polysilicon is very energy intensive. It takes a lot of electricity. And so we are the biggest electricity consumer. And because of that, we're very cautious about how we use it. We are very efficient. We have designed programs and procedures over the years to get every ounce of energy we can out of all the things that we do so that we don't waste anything. And last year we kicked off a whole, it was really our first year where we issued a corporate sustainability report. We started to change the metrics and things within our company about how are we creating a sustainable future. Again, solar, which is a big part of our business, is all about green energy and sustainability. But as we started down that path, we said, well, we have to look internally. What are all the things that we're doing to make sure we're more sustainable? And so we've really had last year was a great effort, and we've got a lot of things going on to try to make sure that we're improving the sustainability of solar as well as our company carbon footprint.
That is amazing to think about, with the energy, so many things. So how do you top being named the 2020 coolest thing made in Michigan? How do you top that title? What's next?
It's funny. I asked, isn't there a coolest thing made in the U.S.? We got to go for it, right? I don't think there's a U.S. Manufacturers Association, but I was wondering what the next step is. So certainly educating people in the state of Michigan and people nationally about the importance of polysilicon in both the semiconductor and solar supply chain. That's partly my mission and other people, our government affairs group at Hemlock. I don't know how we top the greatest thing in Michigan. We think polysilicon is pretty cool, and we're trying to get the word out so that everybody else does too.
Right. Well, if anything, throughout the past year, we've all realized how vital technology and all of the equipments that we're using right now, they really are to us. I mean, this isn't a luxury anymore. Right. This is really a necessity in order to operate in today's world.
Yeah, that's one of the things the pandemic brought about, I think, for a lot of people in the U.S. is the importance of supply chains. And you really realize how dependent we are on a global economy. And in some cases, it's like, are we too dependent, right? I mean, clearly there was almost no PPE made in the United States. And it was like, wow, maybe that's something we should make inside the U.S. And so there's critical industries that you don't want to necessarily have total dependence on outside of the United States.
Yeah, that has definitely been highlighted throughout the crisis. And we know that Senator Gary Peters has really been an advocate to try to bring manufacturing back to the United States, but also to the state of Michigan.
Yeah. Senator Peters and Senator Stabenow have been both good supporters of Hemlock Semiconductor and what we're trying to do. So I appreciate any of their efforts.
So with that, anything else that you want to share with us? Just another minute or two before we say goodbye. How can people find out more information?
Well, sure. You can always go to our website, hscpoly.com. It's not really set up as a consumer website because we don't really sell polysilicon to people, but there's plenty of information there to find out more about polysilicon and what we do and find out a little bit more about what we're doing on sustainability. So that's always a good place to go. And again, I would encourage people just to, keep following the news about solar and about semiconductor in the United States, because again, a lot of the supply for the U.S. is outside the U.S. and we're working to make sure we highlight how important it is to make sure we have U.S. manufacturing and hopefully Michigan manufacturing.
Right. And the important thing in this, too, is developing the workforce to be able to support companies such as yours, because if we're going to try to bring manufacturing back to the state of Michigan and continue to grow it, we need to have the workforce there as well. And I know that on your website, it says that it's a fun work environment. And, just knowing that, then we wish you the best of luck. And for so many people out there, explore companies such as yours, because we need you to continue to thrive and survive and support our economy. So thank you again for being with us, Phil.
Thanks so much, Ronnie. Tyler, appreciate it.
So before we say goodbye, what's the website once again?
HSCPOLY.com. That's our corporate website.
Okay, Phil. Thanks again. Phil Dembowski, he's the Senior Vice President and Chief Commercial Officer for Hemlock Semiconductor.